Hello, my name is Dan Holm. I'm an Office 365 MVP and the co-founder of IT Unity. In this short video, I'm going to show you how to use IFT, also known as if this, then that, and Office 365 to create a solution where, when you add a task for a group in Trello, it notifies the appropriate Office 365 group. Now, this video is fairly self-explanatory, but if you're not yet familiar with IFT, I recommend you watch two previous videos. First, my video that explains what are web services and why do they matter, and more importantly, my introduction to IFT. You can find both of those videos at itunity.com/danholm. IFT, or if this, then that, allows you to connect two cloud services. IFT watches one service, and if something happens in that service, then IFT performs an action in that other service. In this example, we're going to look at Trello and Office 365. In Office 365, I have groups that I belong to. They represent my teams and projects. Trello is a popular task and project management application that we use. I want to create a solution so that when I add a task for my group in Trello, it automatically starts a conversation in the Office 365 group. Now, Office 365 groups are not yet a channel in Trello. However, they do have email addresses. So I can send an email to my group and thereby start a new conversation. So if I was to phrase this solution in an if this then that statement, it would be if I add a card in Trello, then send an email to the appropriate group. Before I start creating the IFT recipe, I need to know a little bit about what I'm working with. On the Trello side, I've got a board called Marketing Initiatives. The board has several lists that help me manage various efforts within my marketing initiatives: product launch, branding, and customer event. When I have a task that goes along with one of those initiatives, it gets added as a card in Trello. And that's what I want to be sent to the marketing group in Office 365. So I'm going to be adding a card to a specific list in the Marketing Initiatives board. On the Office 365 side, I have an Office 365 group for my marketing team. A group is a relatively new feature of Office 365 that pulls together the members of a group or team and gives them what they need to get their job done. A group has a calendar, for example. It has a set of files. It has a notebook. And it has conversations. You can see the conversations starting to build here in the middle pane. The default conversation is there. What I want to do is I want to start a new conversation every time a new task is added to Trello. Now, unfortunately, Office 365 groups are not yet a channel to Trello, but a group does have an email address. And by sending an email to the group, you create a new conversation. So all I need to do is find out the email address of this group. By clicking the three dots and going to View Details, I can see that the email address of this group is marketing@itunity.com. I now have all the bits of information I need to create my recipe in IFT. From my Recipes page on IFT, I click Create a Recipe. I'm prompted to specify what this is that I'm looking for. What's the trigger channel and trigger? I click this, and the trigger channel in this case is Trello. I then specify what I'm going to use as the trigger in Trello, and that is when a card is added to a board. Trello, I'm prompted to select which board in Trello I'm monitoring, and that is the Marketing Initiatives board. I then create the trigger, and I have specified the if side of the statement. If in Trello a card is added to the Marketing Initiatives board, then, and now I'm prompted for the action. I click that, and my action channel in this case is Office 365 Mail. And what am I going to do? I'm going to send an email to the marketing group. So that's why I need to know the email address of my group. Now, this email will actually be sent from my account because it's my IFT recipe. So the group does not need to be enabled for external email. This can be truly an internal thing. So that's the recipient. Now, what do I want to do as far as the subject goes? In this case, I'd like to say And the subject, by the way, is the conversation in the group, I'm going to say the subject is the name of the card that I've added within the list it's created. So I'm going to use two ingredients here. I'm going to use the list name and then the card name, which is the title ingredient. So that will be the subject of the email, which becomes the root of the conversation, the subject of the conversation. Now we need to decide what the body of the email message will say. Now, the body in this sample includes a bunch of strange-looking codes and brackets. Those are called HTML tags or markup. And you don't necessarily need to know HTML to craft the body of your email message. You can just do it in plain text. But you also might want to know at least two of the tags. One of them is this tag right here, ahref. This creates the beginning of a hyperlink. /A on the other end marks the end of the hyperlink. So what this is creating altogether is a hyperlink to the card that behind the text that says view on Trello. That's a pretty important one if we want to give people away from the conversation to link to the Trello card. Another pretty important tag is BR. BR creates a line break. Without those, everything's going to be in one line of the email message. So I'm actually going to keep those two tags there, and we're just going to get rid of everything else, and we'll create that from scratch. What I want to say is that someone created a task with a specific title on a specific project. So I'm going to start with the ingredient of the person, the creator full name, created the following task. Now I'm going to use one of those BR tags to create a new line. And in fact, I'm going to put in two of them so there's a blank line between my first line and the name of the task. The name of the task is the title ingredient. And again, I'm going to put in two blank lines and then the statement on and then the name of the project, which is the list name, project. Two more line breaks. And then we already have one there. And then the link to view on Trello. So-and-so created the following task. Put in a blank line by putting in two breaks. The name of the task, another blank line. On the name of the project, another blank line. And finally, view on Trello. That's what we need. I'm going to create this action and give it a title. So this will be the title of this recipe. If a card is added on the Marketing Initiative's Trello board, start a conversation in the marketing group to notify the group of the task. I click Create Recipe, and I'm notified that the recipe is created. Now let's test the recipe out. I'm going to add a card to the product launch list. We'll call this card Determine Product Launch Strategy. So the card is now added. IFT recipes run on a schedule. IFT doesn't publish how frequently recipes run, but typically it will be somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes before this recipe runs. I'm a little impatient, so I'm going to click Check Recipe. That will let me run the recipe manually and make sure that it's actually working. I'm notified that the recipe was checked, and I can now go to the log of the recipe, and I can see that, in fact, the recipe was triggered, meaning it detected a new card on the Trello board. So hopefully, when I go to my group in Office 365, we'll see that a conversation has been started. When I come to my Office 365 group, I'm notified that there is new activity, which means if I click that, it refreshes the conversation, and sure enough, here's the beginning of a new conversation and the message that we configured. The group now knows that the task was added, and they have a link to go directly to that card on Trello. And notice the link goes directly to the card. Pretty cool, huh? I've published this recipe in IFT, so if you simply search IFT for Trello and Office 365 group, you'll find this recipe and you can use it right away. You don't even have to reinvent the wheel. Hopefully you've enjoyed this opportunity to learn how to connect two completely different services like Trello and Office 365 to solve your business problems. To solve more business problems with technology, join me and many other incredible experts at IT Unity. You can find more of my videos and articles at itunity.com/danholm. IFT, or If This, Then That, is a popular web service that allows you to connect two other web services so that together they do something that neither does on its own. IFT watches one service, and if something happens, then it does something in that other service. In this scenario, we're going to connect Pocket and OneDrive. Pocket is a popular web-based application that can be used for saving web pages for reading later, even reading offline. OneDrive, which is part of Microsoft's Office 365 suite, is an online storage location. So we're going to create a solution that allows me to take a page that I've read in Pocket and really liked and save it as a PDF in OneDrive. Let's step through the scenario before we build the solution. Assume I just discovered a great blog entry on Office Blogs telling me that Office 365 channels are now live on IFT. I might want to save this for reading later. Now, depending on the application I'm using right now, there are lots of different ways to send this page to Pocket. I'm using Chrome, and Chrome has an add-in for Pocket up here in the very upper right corner. So if I simply click Save to Pocket, that page gets saved. Now, if I go to the Pocket website, we see that that page is now part of my list. And there's lots of other ways to access and read your list. There are Pocket apps for iOS and Android, for example. And those apps will also download items from your list and keep them for offline reading. So I could read this article when I was on the train, on the way to work, for example. So we've got a web page that gets saved to Pocket. Now, what if I really like an article and I want to save it for the future? What I want to build now is a solution where I can tag an article and by tagging it, save it to my OneDrive for Business. I've even created a little folder in my OneDrive called Pocket. So I want to save a PDF of that article in my Pocket folder of OneDrive. Because web pages change over time, and web pages disappear, and I might want to preserve this article for the future.